I want to take you on a journey. This is every filmmaker's opening line. So naturally, as a filmmaker, I'm going to use it here today. Okay, stay with me. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to imagine an image of a Muslim woman. Hold that image. Okay, now open your eyes. All right, this is a non-judgmental, safe space. So tell me, what was the first image that you saw? Was it this? Or maybe this? Or how about this? These were the images a little girl with caramel skin and curly furry hair would watch on her tube TV in the panhandle of Florida. She would watch her favorite movie, Aladdin, where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home. Then she would watch her second favorite movie, where she would see her hero, Marty McFly, go back to the future to save Doc. No, Doc, no, the Libyans are coming, no, ah! Doc shot dead. She would continue to flip the channel. So I ask you, what do these images do to that little girl? Moreover, what does it do to the audiences watching these portrayals over and over? How does it shape their worldview? So for me, that little girl, those images were the only mirrors she had. And boy, were those mirrors cracked. These images that we have been seeing are no fault of yours. They have been fed to us systemically for generations. This concept comes from an ideology called Orientalism, coined by a Palestinian-American professor from Columbia University, Edward Said, in 1978. In his book, Said states that Orientalism is the way in which the West views the Orient, what is put together as Middle East and Asia. Said further states that Orientalism is the way in which the West dominates and controls the East for its colonial ambitions. He further states that the West stereotypes the East in calling it barbaric and uncivilized in contrast to the rational and civilized West. This eventually blends into art, literature, and eventually film. Orientalism is a way in which Middle Eastern and Muslim identities were constructed and consumed and overall othered. So this brings me back to that little girl watching that tube TV in the panhandle of Florida. It's the Deep South, being of Egyptian descent, Muslim, a woman. Microaggressions were part of everyday school activity, trip to the grocery store, or even a walk in the park. Things that we do every day. But it's what shaped me into becoming a filmmaker, and more importantly, a comedic filmmaker, because all you can do with that amount of racism is laugh. So me and my friends, we would make shows like the Arsenio Hall show. Naturally, I was Iman Hall, and we would do an Arab beauty pageant where we'd have Miss Saudi Arabia dressed in full niqab dancing on the coffee table. We were 10 in the 90s. We took the rare representation that was given to us and turned it on its head and made comedy. 5 little brown Muslim girls. Besides the emotions of joy and laughter, we felt connection, hope, and pride. Representation, representation, representation. It's all we hear about, and for good reason. USC Annenberg did a study about Muslim representations in Hollywood. Muslims make about 1/4 of the global population. And out of the top 200 films, and in about 9,000 speaking roles, only 1.6% of those characters are Muslim characters. Out of those 1.6% of the characters, almost 40% of them perpetuated violence, and less than 1/4 of them were Muslim women. And when those women were portrayed, they were in submissively stereotypical roles. To go even further, 41 out of the primary secondary characters, over 50% of them were immigrants, almost 90% of them didn't speak English or spoke with an accent, and over 75% of them wore clothes related to their faith. These portrayals were mainly in Middle East and North Africa, and less than 1% of them were in the United States. That's one character. Muslims are always seen as foreigners, and that's what really got me growing up. Like most immigrant kids, I was never seen as an American enough and always seen as foreign. So when I walked into my first day of film school at Florida State University, I knew I just wanted to tell movies about me and my friends. So I made my own films. I made a romantic comedy about a girl who wears her scarf as her superhero cape, a comedy about a stand-up comedian that goes up against her Jewish counterpart, and a comedy about a Muslim detective that has to solve a pignapping case. At the time, I didn't realize I was one of the first to do this. The shorts did really well. Audiences loved them. So I asked myself, why? It's because audiences crave something real. They want something more than the one-dimensional, violent characters that they have been fed. According to the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding, 0.9% of terrorism is labeled as Islamic terrorism. These Muslim-perceived perpetrators receive 770% more media coverage than the non-Muslim perceived perpetrators. Despite this media information, the majority of American domestic terrorist fatalities comes at the hands of white supremacists. According to the FBI, they have seen a 357% increase in openly racially motivated domestic terrorism cases from 2013 to 2021. And that number more than doubled between 2020 and 2021. These distorted portrayals comes where stories are power. So, what better way to change these portrayals than to tell a rom-com, the most American genre ever, about Muslim women? Our film is called Americanish, and it's one of the first American Muslim romantic comedies made by Muslim women about Muslim women, after Amina Bakir Abdul-Jabbar's film, A Muslim's Guide to Marriage. So, Americanish took 10 years to make. Why 10 years, you say? Because it's a comedy about Muslim women. We were like, okay, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna get all the supports from all the peoples. Wrong. Me and my creative partner, Isa Fatima, and I started touring the nation, pitching to wealthy businessmen. We were like, okay, we're gonna tell a story about Muslim women leading the screen with laughter, love, and joy, something that our communities really need and that we haven't seen before. So, are you in? Crickets. We started hearing from these businessmen, you know, my wife would really love this story, or my daughter would really connect to it. So we thought, we're pitching to the wrong people. So we started pitching to Muslim women, and it was a no-brainer for them. They were like, take all of our monies, because as you know, women supporting women is where it's at. And I'm proud to say that majority of our investors are Muslim women, and 100% of our investors are from the US and UK Muslim community. So during this time, in 2016, Trump was elected, and the Muslim ban was put into place. Suddenly, Hollywood was like, maybe we should tell a better story about Muslims? Then hijabs were everywhere. On television screens, on films, on magazine covers, hijab became the new black. However, not correctly. Because no one I know wears a hijab that looks like this. Stories told about Muslims by non-Muslims. Although I really appreciate the effort, they miss the mark. They lack the depth and authenticity needed to truly tell our stories. What Hollywood failed to understand, it wasn't just about putting Muslims on the screen. It's about creating and supporting the platforms for Muslims to tell their stories. Representation isn't just about being seen. It's about being seen authentically. And in order to do that, we need honest voices behind the camera as much as in front of it. As we have seen in the many systems of Hollywood, they haven't been there to support people of color and women storytellers, particularly Muslim stories. Remember, we are fighting against a generation of Orientalist ideologies. Will stories about Muslim women falling in love sell? Do people want to hear this story? This is what I was hearing from the gatekeepers while distributing Americanish. So we hear that there are not enough diverse stories because there are not enough diverse audiences. Let's take a look at the audiences from 2023 and 2024. UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report showed that the Black, Indigenous, people of color, or BIPOC, and the female moviegoers propped up the struggling theatrical industry. Films like Super Mario Bros. And Transformers were over 60% diverse audiences, while Guardians of the Galaxy was over 51%. In 2024, Despicable Me 4 and Inside Out 2 were over 70% BIPOC audiences, while Deadpool and Wolverine was over 65%. And 9 out of the top 10 film, about 30% of them were BIPOC casts, and out of 5 of the top 10 films, over 40% were female cast. Diverse audiences want to see films with diverse cast and stories. For Americanish, it was the BIPOC community, the Asian American community, and the Muslim community that propped up the film that won 26 awards, was in 50 film festivals worldwide, and was distributed by Sony International. Americanish, the little Muslim woman film that could, the case study. I remember when Stacy Spikes, the founder of Urban World and the creator of MoviePass, said to us, "You guys are the first. You are breaking down that glass wall, but you have arrows on your backs." And I was like, but I don't want arrows in our backs. So how do we get rid of these arrows and support and uplift each other? The Islamic Scholarship Fund is the first American Muslim organization to fund Muslim filmmakers and has the most American Muslim filmmakers to date, with organizations like the Muslim Public Affairs Council, Hollywood Bureau, the Pillars Fund, and the Doris Duke Building Bridges program. We are working together to support Muslim storytellers. To date, there is only a handful of American Muslim women directors that have directed a narrative feature film. The Gina Davis Institute, Muslim Casting, and the Pillars Fund all came together to create the first of its kind on-screen representation test to evaluate the portrayals of Muslim women. Surviving to Thriving, the Muslim Women on-screen test was made for content creators and audience members alike to show the harmful portrayals of Muslim women. I was honored to be an advisor on this test, which asks questions like, if the character is objectified, othered, or oppressed, or joy, lead role, or lead. These are large steps in creating nuanced characters for Muslim women. But we're not alone. There's a new generation of American Muslim women filmmakers pushing the boundaries, leading to a metamorphosis in the industry. American Muslim women filmmakers like Lena Khan, who is a hijabi's first studio director with her Disney film Flora and Ulysses. Minhal Beg created history by being Apple TV's first narrative film acquisition with her film Hala. Nigel Mutman told a beautiful story about a Black Muslim woman experience with her film Jinn. Sahar Jahani is a television writer who writes for shows like 13 Reasons Why and The Bold Type. And Fauzia Mirza transformed the landscape with her queer film, A Queen of My Dreams. And then finally, We Are Lady Parts. Y'all, I cried when I watched this show, not because it was a drama, but because it showed Muslim women authentically for the first time. Something that I've been working on for 15 years finally happened. Made by British Muslim woman Nida Mansour, it follows the story of a Muslim female punk rock band. And it shows all the different characters and arrays of Muslim women, telling the world what they need to understand. Muslim women are not a monolith. But this is just the beginning. To create change, question the narratives you see. Don't accept surface-level portrayals. Dig deeper. Ask for nuance. Look for the filmmakers that are representing a community with authenticity. To my fellow storytellers, particularly the ones whose identities are not often represented, no one is just going to give you a green light to tell your story. You have to work for it, fight for it, and if necessary, break that glass ceiling above you. Failure, rejection, obstacles, that's all part of the journey. But so is finding like-minded individuals that want to tell your story and crave it. So imagine the world if we all came together to tell meaningful and compelling stories. So when you imagine Muslim women, you will see this. Amir Sackett, a breakdancer. Bilqis Abdelkadir, a basketball player. Maryam Rahman, a neurosurgeon, more importantly, my best friend. Yasmin Al-Hadi, a TV personality, attorney, and comedian. Nusrat Chaudhry, a federal judge. And this gal. Remember, every story that challenges these outdated and harmful stereotypes opens the door for a better future. We are the authors of our narratives. So let's tell them boldly, authentically, and without fear. Thank you. Yeah.